Okay, this is Go Math lesson 11.5 on geometry. The standard is 6.G.2. It's on fractions and volume. The essential question is, what is the relationship between the volume and the edge lengths of a prism with fractional edge lengths? So connect. Volume is the number of cubic units needed to occupy a given space without gaps or overlaps. You can find the volume of a rectangular prism by seeing how many unit cubes it takes to fill the prism. Recall that a unit cube is a cube with a side length of 1. So we have an investigate. It's a hands-on activity. It says the materials we'll need are a net of a rectangular prism, cube, scissors, and tape. So since I don't have that, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it out and then we'll talk about what's happening in the picture. So it says a jewelry box has a length of 3.5 units, a width of 1.5 units, and a height of 2 units. What is the volume of the box in cubic units? So step A, it says each of the cubes in this activity has a side length of a half unit. How many cubes with side length half does it take to form a unit cube? So it's showing you a picture of that already. So this is a unit cube and this is a half unit, and it's asking how many of these half unit cubes would it take to fill up a unit? And so that would be, it would be 2, 4, and then that's the front half, and then you're going to need 8 little cubes to fill it in. So I'm going to put 8. And then it says, so each smaller cube represents how much of this unit cube? Well, it would represent 1/8 because it would be 1 out of 8 of the cubes to fill up a unit. So I'm going to put 1/8. Part B, cut out the net and then fold and tape the net into a rectangular prism. Leave one face open so you can pack the prism with cubes. And then it says pack the prism with cubes. How many cubes with a side length of half does it take to fill the prism? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw that out. So here's my dimensions though. It said it's 3.5, a length of 3.5, a width of 1.5, and then a height of 2. So this should be 3.5. So it's going to look like 3.5. I didn't do it super neat, sorry. 3.5, and then I know this is gonna be 1.5 on the side. So on this front piece, if each of these, remember, is 8, then it's going to take 8 times 6, because there's 6 of those on just the front half. 6 times 8 is 48, plus these are 4. So 4 plus 4 is another 8. So that's 56, but then it's deep, more than 1 block deep. It's 1.5. So then I'm going to have to do half of all these as well. So a half of 8 is 4, and then I have 6 of those, so that's 24 more. Plus then I have these 4, and half of 4 is 2, so I have another 4. So altogether it's going to take 84 of these little half unit blocks to fill up this prism. So I'm going to put in 84. Part D, to find the volume of the jewelry box in cubic units, determine how many unit cubes you could make from the smaller cubes you use to pack the prism. So I know that it takes 8 smaller cubes to make 1 unit cube. So I'm going to divide the total number of smaller cubes by 8 since there's 8 in each one. So I'm going to go 84 divided by 8. Which would be 10 and 4/8 left over, which will reduce because my greatest common factor is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2, so it'll be 10.5. So the volume of the jewelry box is 10.5 cubic units. Okay, question 1. It says, could we use the same method of packing cubes to find the volume of a triangular prism? So could I pack all these cubes in to find this volume? So no, I wouldn't be able to do that because there would be gaps left over no matter how I arrange the cubes. So the number of unit cubes that would fit would always be less than the total volume. Question 2, think smarter. How many cubes with a side length of half a unit do you need to form 3 unit cubes? Well, we know that there's 8 in 1, so if there's 3, then it's going to be 8 times 3 is 24. So 24, because it takes 8 smaller cubes to form 1 unit cube, so it would take 8 times 3 is 24 smaller cubes to form 3 unit cubes. Okay, this is the way that we're going to do it, though. We're going to use the formula for volume. Instead of trying to fit half unit cubes, which a lot of us don't have at home, we're going to just use the formula. Volume equals length times width times height. So you can use the formula for the volume of a rectangular prism to find the volume of a jewelry box. So the formula that we are going to use is volume equals length times width times height. Step 2, replace the variables using the values that we know. So we know it was 3.5 length times 1.5 width times 2. Then I'm going to write my mixed numbers as fractions greater than 1, so improper fractions. So remember, I have to multiply, then add. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7 halves, and they already did this one for you, 3 halves times 2. Then I'm going to multiply. So this would be 2 over 1. So I'm going to go, I like to cross cancel too, but they usually don't do that. So 7 times 3 is 21 times 2 is 42. 42 over 2 times 2 is 4 times 1 is 4. So 42 over 4, and then that's improper. So I'm going to write the fraction as a mixed number. So this line means remember to divide. So 42 divided by 4. And I can't get anything out of that. So it's going to be 10 with 2/4 left over, which they have the 2/4 already. And that will simplify. My greatest common factor is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So again, you get your 10.5. This is much easier than trying to make a shape and fill it with cubes. So 10.5. The volume of the jewelry box is 10.5 cubic units. So I'm going to do a few more problems for you. Number 1 is back to there's 8 half unit cubes in a unit, right? So a prism is filled with 38 cubes with a side length of a half of a unit. What is the volume of the prism in cubic units? So again, we're just going to divide. So it's going to be 38 divided by 8. So that one would be 4 times 8 is 32. And then subtract to find my remainder. So 8 minus 2 is 6. So it's 4 and 6/8. 4 and 6/8, which will reduce. The greatest common factor is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it's going to be 4 and 3/4 cubic units. Next one, number 2. A prism is filled with 58 cubes with a side length of a half unit. What is the volume of the prism in cubic units? Again, this one I'm going to have to divide. So it's going to be 58 divided by 8, because remember there's 8 of those half unit cubes in a unit cube. So then this one is going to be 7 times 8 is 56. 2 are left over, so it's 2/8, and that will reduce. The greatest common factor is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it's going to be 7 and 1/4 cubic units. Okay, now we're going to go to our volume formula, which is more practical to use. So it says find the volume of the rectangular prism. So I'm going to use my formula, length times width times height. So my length is 5.5. My width is 2. And my height is 3. I'm going to rewrite this 5.5. So it's going to be 11 halves times 2 over 1 times 3 over 1. I'm going to cancel out my 2's. So the greatest common factor is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So then I'm going to multiply across. 11 times 3 is 33. And then this is just 1 on the bottom. So 33 divided by 1 is 33. So this will be 33 cubic units. Okay, I'm going to do one more. It says number 4, I'm going to use my volume equals length times width times height. 4.5 times 4.5 times 4.5. This is a cube, so all the measurements are the same. I need to rewrite all of these as improper fractions. So it's going to be 4 times 2 is 8 plus 1 is 9/2. It's going to be the same all across. Then I'm just going to go 9 times 9 is 81 times 9. And then that would be 9 times 8 is 72. So 729 divided by 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 729 divided by 8. 9 times 8 is 72. This will go once with 1 left over. So it's going to be 91 1/8. 91 1/8 cubic units. Okay, I'm going to do these 2 word problems for you, and then that's going to be it. And then if you have questions, you can ask on the classroom. So this is a go deeper problem. It says Theodore wants to put 3 flowering plants in his window box. The window box is shaped like a rectangular prism that is 30 5/10 inches long, 6 inches wide, and 6 inches deep. The 3 plants need a total of 1,200 cubic inches of potting soil to grow well. Is the box large enough? Explain. So I'm going to use length times width times height, and then I'm going to substitute. My length is 30 5/10. My width is 6, and my depth is 6. So then it says, I'm going to go 6 times 6 is 36, and multiply that by 30 5/10. 6 times 0 is 0 plus 3. 6 times 3 is 18. 0 placeholder. 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 0 is 0 plus 1. 3 times 3, 9. And then I have one number behind a decimal, so I'm going to have to come over 1. So the box is 1,098 cubic inches, and it says that it needs 1,200 cubic inches. So no, the box is not large enough because the volume of the box was only 1,098 cubic inches, which is less than 1,200 cubic inches, which were needed for the 3 flowering plants. Okay, last one, number 6. It says explain how to use the formula volume equals length times width times height to verify that a cube with a side length of 1/2 a unit has a volume of 1/8 of a cubic unit. So we know volume equals length times width times height. It says that the cube has a 1/2 a unit, a side length of a 1/2 of a unit. So I know that this is going to be the same. All the dimensions are the same because on a cube, everything has the same dimensions. So then when I multiply this together, I get 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. And so yes, that proves that it is 1/8. The length, width, and height of a cube of 1/2 a unit, you would substitute the 1/2 for length, width, and height, and then multiply those all together, and you're going to get 1/8. So that would prove it. If you have any questions, leave them on the classroom. Thank you.